Hey Eric, how you doing tonight?
Hey, John. I'm doing all right. How was your week?
It has been a lovely week in Oregon. I can't even believe this weather.
Again.
Yeah,
Yeah, knock on wood somewhere.
yeah. Well, it's gonna go back downhill. I'm sure. Maybe we'll have a terrible, terrible March or something. But yeah, this weather has been uh, lovely. Normally, we're racing to try to get out of get out of Dodge for a week in February, just to kind of have a variety to the rain. But yeah, my younger son was off all last week. Actually, I think I mentioned that he was off last week, so he really enjoyed his time, and
Uh huh.
and yeah, I don't know. Would have I miss using that week for a trip, but now that they're in two different schools, their breaks aren't
Mm-hmm.
aren't the exact same. So we'll see what we can do. But I'll tell you though, since it was like mid 50s, I used the time to get into my beehives this weekend,
And?
and they are booming. They are booming. So I was worried that one of them was kind of the weakest one. Will it make it? And it still might not. We're not out of the woods yet. But I started feeding them some pollen patties, and I gave the weak one some more sugar, and I didn't like go in frame by frame like I will do later in the spring when it's warmer. But I picked up the top box to see, and all three hives were like full of bees all the way down into the bottom box still. So I'm I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to spring. This is the
Bees all the way
this
down,
is the
huh?
fun. It is bees all the way down. There you go, title. Uh, but no, I'm. This is the fun time. I get to go play with my bees. Let's see. I was gonna say I threw two other things in the notes for this past weekend too, but the first of which is I kind of feel bad about this a little bit, but I used the weekend to put chemicals out. We went all last year without doing Roundup or anything like that around the house, and we don't do it around any of our gardens or flower beds or any of that stuff. But the parking lot, how you keep grass out of a parking lot without chemicals, I cannot figure out. So last year
Pavement?
pavement, yeah, well, yeah, thanks, gee.
But that's just more permanent
Yeah,
chemicals.
yeah.
So.
No, last year I did all this experiments. I literally set out some squares, and I tried different what would you say, like concentrations, I guess, of vinegar, because that's
Mm.
an organic acid that will kill things, but it's actually kind of hard to get 20 or 30% vinegar. Most stuff you buy in the stores is like 5%. And anyway, so I laid out some grids, and I did 10%, 15%, 20%, and 30% concentration of vinegar to see what would do it. But I don't know. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like I broke down last weekend, and I was like, well, I'm putting chemicals on my gravel areas because otherwise they're all green, which is it's not good. It's not good.
Mm.
So I felt bad about that. But then the other thing was that my son and I did a class down at the Rockler woodworking store about how to make a little wooden box, which was cool. And then when we came home, this was Sunday, the power was out. So we got home at noon. The power was out, and uh,
That's no fun.
well, there was total windstorm. So which is why the power was out, and there were power outages all over. You not having had your power out, to the best of my knowledge,
Nope.
might not have been watching the PGE power outage map. I was. There were a lot of
Nope.
red flags on the PGE power outage map. So,
I was unaware of said power outages past
yeah.
weekend.
So, I mean, I tried to do a couple things outside, but it was pretty crummy weather. And,
Yeah.
you could be inside projects like power, like inside the shop or inside the barn projects, they like power.
Right.
Uh, inside the house stuff. Anyway, so we puttered around and eventually went out to dinner just so that we didn't, what are you gonna cook? We could have grilled something, but we couldn't wash your hands or anything like that because I'm on a well, so there's no power, no water. And anyway, so we started a fire after dinner and sat around and read on our iDevices and listened to a story, and it was a nice actually evening, but kind of got chilly in the house. I'll tell you that.
I bet.
Yeah, power came on sometime after midnight. So anyway, that was an exciting weekend thing. How about you? How was your weekend?
Well, this weekend you mentioned I feel bad, so we went to the auto show and sat in a bunch of vehicles, and they're the kind of vehicles that socially I'm supposed to feel bad about enjoying sitting in and wanting to own.
Okay.
But my wife and I went. My boy and I have been going to the auto show every year since he was tiny. And this year he just kind of decided he didn't want to go. I was a little bummed, so.
Welcome to teenagerhood.
Yes. My wife said, I want to go because I no longer want to be a minivan mom. I want to get something else. And so I said, sure, let's go to the auto show. And we wandered around and checked out cars. And then it was I still want seating for 7. So,
but not a minivan.
But not a minivan, which then of course turns you into some type of SUV.
A maxi SUV.
Yeah, not the supersize ones, the mid-range, the Ford Explorer class.
Yeah.
But I was frankly surprised at how much and how nice the Hyundai and the Kia were. I'd never thought I'd ever say that. I know you've mentioned several times about you like certain Hyundais, but
yeah, my mother-in-law has a Hyundai that is nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised at how what's the right word? Well built they feel. The close the door test, do you get a nice satisfying thud or
right.
Do you get a tink? And a lot of the American made vehicles are tinks. And those Hyundais were a nice solid thud. Anyways, I don't know what we're going to do, but eventually we will no longer be a minivan household. And if current projections continue, we will have some type of SUV. But then the other thing that I thought was really cool at the auto show is they had one of the new Mustang Mach-E, full electric Mustang.
Yeah.
That you could see. Because I'd seen pictures of them and I just couldn't.
They look funky.
They do, but then when you see it in person, you're like, oh, because it doesn't look like a Mustang in the pictures. And then you go look at it in person, you're like, all right, that's a Mustang.
Really?
It still is a little funky, but I liked it enough that I went and built and priced a couple. I didn't click, reserve yours, but
yeah.
I went and built and priced a few just to see how they looked.
Yeah.
That might be a fun car to have someday.
Someday. I don't know.
Someday. Anyways, that was that was my weekend.
That's cool. I've never been to the auto show. I'm not a huge auto guy, so perhaps an understatement. All right, fun. Well, I was going to have as we enter follow-up, I'll give you one minor little semi-unrelated follow-up, but I have been tracking Shortwave, which is the NPR science podcast.
Yeah, the little short 10-minute.
Yeah, it was Year Something Fun, I think, maybe
a
few months ago. I didn't look up when it was, but like this past weekend when I was out puttering and around and doing stuff, I caught up on all my shortwaves for the last week or so, and I've been really enjoying that podcast. So there you go.
Yeah,
I really
it's a fun little podcast,
and it is short. It's kind of like Science Friday snippets. I always did like Science Friday, but for some reason I don't listen to it in a regular podcast form. But anyway, I've been enjoying shortwave. So there you go. Semi follow-up. What do you got for me?
So last week, I think we were lamenting the fact that we didn't have a breach of the week.
That's right.
Where we were confused, but we'd been having almost a breach of the week, and then right after we finished recording, a ZDNet article popped up about exclusive details of 10.6 million MGM hotel guest data posted on a hacking forum. And I didn't actually read the whole article. I think I just retweeted it. And then when I went and looked at it, it probably wouldn't have counted
because it was actually from last year.
Yeah, it was actually from last year, and the ZDNet, they had contacted some people and they contacted the hotel. What I was impressed with, at least in reading the article, was how when the reporters called to talk to the company, within an hour they were on a conference call with the hotel chain's security team.
Wow.
Explaining everything that happened, and boom, boom, boom. You don't see that in the news a lot.
Wow.
I
say
slight,
good on MGM.
I guess give the hat tip to MGM there for reporter calls us, hey, we've seen this, and they said, all right, let's have you chat to our security team, and we'll give you all the information. So well done.
Well played. Okay. No, that's great. No, I did actually. Well, first of all, this whole breach of the week thing was kind of a joke. It just so happened. It's not like we were out
like 3 weeks in a row.
But it does seem like there's a lot of them. So that is what it is. All right. How about a topic? What you got for me this week?
All right. So the thing that crossed my path this week, and it's because I have love is now too strong a word for my Eero system. I used to love my Eeros, and I'm now developing a little bit of a love-hate relationship with them.
Lingering affection?
Because they're not as bulletproof as I feel like they used to be. However, the article
routers these days.
Yeah.
Old man yells at cloud.
the article I saw today was Eero had added HomeKit support, which I thought was interesting for several reasons. One, Amazon owns Eero, and on some level, most of what Apple is doing with HomeKit is a competitor to what Amazon is trying to do with their kind of home security stuff. Well, competitor or adjacent? Maybe adjacent's more like
cooperators.
Yeah, but so I thought that was interesting that now the Eero routers, what you can do is you can hook your Eero routers up to the HomeKit system, and then then you'll be able to do is with HomeKit and a HomeKit enabled router, you can have different levels of security that you associate with IoT devices. I think we've talked about this in the past, where you have all these IoT devices in your home, and once you hook them to your Wi-Fi, you have no idea what they're doing. Well, with the HomeKit enabled router, the Eero routers now that support HomeKit, you can have the router restrict devices to just the home, meaning that those devices can only interact with HomeKit through your Apple devices, and they have zero internet access at all. So the router will block any attempts to escape your home network by your HomeKit enabled device, which is nice, but also means that if the device is trying to get itself a firmware update or keep itself up to date, it probably would have to connect the internet to get that, so it won't. And then there is the complete opposite, which is no restriction. Device can do whatever the heck it wants. Probably not a good option. And then the default is called automatic, which means that it will only allow limited internet access to HomeKit and connections that are recommended by the manufacturer. So the theory there, I think, is that your device can call home and get firmware updates, but depending on how you define connections recommended by the manufacturer, what does a manufacturer want the device to do? Since they control that, that could be send
so it
data
could still
to ad
be
networks
Snooperson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do other odd stuff. So I thought that was interesting. We'll see if that also helps kind of push and move other routers, because I think that's a big issue with and we've talked about it before, IoT devices, kind of going rogue on your home network. This might be a nice little way to, if you're a HomeKit person, and to do this, you also have to have a home hub. So either the hub or an Apple TV or something in your house that acts as your HomeKit hub.
Oh,
your Apple Home hub. So you can't just have a Belkin switch that's hooked up to HomeKit and have this.
And
work.
the Eero routers don't perform that.
The Eero routers, I guess, communicate with the home device, a device that has been flagged as a home HomeKit home enabled device, which is Apple's home. What's their hub thing? Their big fat smart speaker thing, or an Apple TV.
Wait, why can't I think of that? Yeah.
That thing,
I know what you mean.
That thing that no one buys.
Well, it was like $350.
Yeah.
For one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And no offense, but Apple Dingus is not as good as Amazon Dingus for
HomePod.
talking to. HomePod.
Of course, that's what it's called, HomePod.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. that right there said something, huh? I mean, I guess not that I have the best memory of anyone these days, but it's not in my short list of things to buy for the house.
Nope.
So yeah, it is. All right, well, that's cool. I mean, I guess I have an Apple TV. I've never set up HomeKit, so I got a bunch of smart plugs and stuff like that, but they're all just wired up through the Amazon.
Well, I will tell you, I have the Amazon network set up, I have the Google Home network set up, and I have HomeKit all set up. And it's nice because sometimes I'll ask Amazon to do something, and it will say, I can't connect to that thing. And I can turn right around and say, hey, Googly device, you go do that thing I asked. And Google will say, okay. Or, hey, Apple-y device, go do the thing I want. And it'll say okay or not. So if one fails, I have a backup.
I guess that's good that all the devices can be wired up to all the management
and
controls.
Sadly, I have to use that failover mechanism more often than I would expect.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was my note for the week. The Amazon Eero routers now support HomeKit. And enhancing your home IoT device security, always a good thing.
Well, I do like the notion that, more restrictions are better. At least it hypothetically couldn't go completely nuts and then just start contacting any CNC device or C2C out there. Okay, so like I said, it was a pretty light news week for me, news ingestion week. So I picked a couple topics that one of our friends posted in general. And the first one is something that came from the RSA conference. And it looks like this was disclosed sometime last August or September. It is the a billion Wi-Fi devices are vulnerable to this particular sniffing flaw. This was basically, it's a vulnerability in Broadcom and Cypress Wi-Fi chips. And I remember we talked about a Wi-Fi vulnerability at some point in time last year. But this was seemingly just disclosed, publicly disclosed yesterday, I think. Or maybe today. Maybe today, because I think it was the 26th. So as we're recording it, which is Wednesday the 26th, I think it was disclosed at basically the RSA talk. So it was a couple of ESET researchers that were doing the talk. And so the first link that I saw was actually to the talk at RSA. But if you go digging a little bit, it's pretty easy to get the a summary article and the actual CVE, which is 2019-15-126. And then from there, you could actually link into, some vendor disclosures as well. So, this says, by the way, that, Apple patched its devices in, I think it was maybe on the ESET page. Yeah. So like iOS 13.2 and up, which was released in October 28th of 2019, and Catalina 10.15.1 in October 29th. So, it's been patched for a good number of months at this point. But a billion devices can't be wrong, right? Actually, that's not true. No. So there was a link to a PDF on the ESET site. I didn't actually try and download it. I assumed they'd want my contact info to do that. But it looks like this is basically a time of check to time of use race condition. At least that's what was on the CVE side. And the Cisco disclosure had a little bit more info in it. So it basically says vulnerability allows an unauthenticated adjacent attacker, aka somebody on your or who can read your Wi-Fi signal, to decrypt Wi-Fi frames without the knowledge of the protected access or WPA2 key to secure the Wi-Fi network. And goes on to say the vulnerability exists because after an affected device handles a disassociation event, it can send a limited number of Wi-Fi frames encrypted with a static weak PTK or pairwise temporal key. The attacker could exploit this vulnerability by acquiring these frames and decrypting them with a static PTK. And then a successful exploit could allow the attacker to decrypt Wi-Fi frames without the knowledge of the security session establishment. So basically, it's a weakness. It's a weakness in the encryption being used that will let you decrypt Wi-Fi traffic, even if you don't know the WPA or WPA2 password. Which, the overall vulnerability was rated as a low 3.1. So even though there were a huge number of systems affected, what you could necessarily do with it was relatively restricted, especially since this is the I guess it'd be considered the layer encryption. But if at the protocol level, if you're doing SSL or something like that, that's its own layer of encryption. So this isn't wouldn't give the ability to decrypt and read your actual encrypted traffic if you were on a encrypted connection. So that was cool. There's a link to the talk by the ESET guys. I'm not sure. I'll probably put that link in here. I think that'd be the most interesting one. I haven't actually watched the talk yet, though. I will probably do that if I get the time.
Yeah, I have not paid a whole lot of attention to what's come out of RSA this week either. I'll wait for the wrap up at the end of the week to find the highlights and go pick and choose what I want to pay attention to. But I did see this article and information about this floating around, but I have not paid much attention to it. The one thing. Are you going to talk about this next?
Which one?
Oh, no, you're not. The one thing, I guess, from this is not really an article, but I suppose we could find the link, was the 0 day in Google Chrome.
Oh.
I don't have that article.
Oh.
But so that was the one thing. That was the one thing that I paid attention to this week, and mostly it was because I ran around the house making sure all the Chrome browsers were updated. And then texting, daughter number 1 out in college, hey, if you use Chrome, please update it. So. Yeah.
1 day ago. There we go. Yeah. I remember in the article I read yesterday, it was something about a type confusion. And so the one of the first articles that comes up, in Googling is a Sophos article actually, but it says that access to bug details and links may be kept restricted until a majority of users are updated with a fix. We will also retain restrictions if the bug exists in a third-party library that other projects similarly depend on but haven't yet fixed. So, Google hasn't released too many details about it yet. There is a CVE 2020-6418 type confusion in V8.
Yeah.
And there had been... Yeah, this is the same thing I saw yesterday, which was that Google is aware of reports that an exploit for CVE 2020-6418 exists in the wild. So that's
right.
That's the thing. And there's a little subset here that says 2 researchers at a business called Exodus Intelligence have already published a proof of concept exploit, which they devised by studying recent changes in the V8 source code. Yeah, right. That's how a lot of things are done is, hey, what did they fix? Oh, right there. So how can I hit that code path in an unpatched browser or in an unpatched piece of software, whatever it is. So this says, though, that their example requires you to visit a web page using Chrome with this sandbox protection turned off. So,
right.
So that there's at least a little bit. So, yeah, there's no indication in this particular article about what the quote unquote Google's aware that an exploit is in the wild is really referring to. So
yeah. Well, sorry to
we'll have to throw this we'll have to throw this link in here.
Sorry to throw a surprise topic on you there, but
that's cool. No, you're right. That's definitely something that happened
this
yesterday.
week.
Yeah. That was a little fun few minutes. All right. So my actual second article that I chose, also from Wayne in chat, is the WhatsApp Google group chat join indexing link. So this is a little bit about, hey, by the way, did you know water's wet? In the sense that, so invitations to WhatsApp groups are indexed by Google, aka you can invite somebody to a WhatsApp group with a URL. And if you post that URL on a forum or some other place that Google is indexing, you can then, use specially crafted Google search terms to find those sorts of links and then join those groups. So, this is a little bit of not a security finding. And the quote by Facebook, let's see, I thought I pulled it out. Facebook said, quote, links that users wish to share privately with people they know and trust should not be posted on a publicly accessible website.
Right.
So, okay. So in that sense, this isn't like a vulnerability in WhatsApp. It is a working as designed, because as designed, they might want to allow for larger groups where you would, share an invite link more broadly. But the thing about WhatsApp groups is if you're then able to join the group, then you can see lots of info about the other group members. And so there was a quote in here that said that Motherboard was able to find private groups using specific Google searches, quote, and I'm still quoting, and the results included a lot of porn sharing groups. So once they,
of course,
so they joined a group which was intended for non-governmental organizations accredited by the UN, and they had access to all of the participants and their phone numbers. And so, it's the sort of thing that just yet another way that nothing you do online should have any expectation of privacy. So I can imagine that some number of people in those various porn swapping groups, let's say, probably don't think that just anybody could come in and then be able to get their phone number and then, say, associate their number with other open data in other vulnerabilities and then maybe use them for sextortion or something like that, right? Where they get sent emails threatening to release info about their habits and etc. So,
yep.
Nothing you do online's private.
Nope.
It'll and if you think it is today, that doesn't mean that it doesn't get exposed tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
And this one I guess is identical to sharing a Slack invite group, right? Because
which
I just went out
on
and
our
looked.
website.
You can go to mostlysecurity.com and join our Slack group, and it's one of those links that allows you access, and then you'll be able to see who else has also joined our Slack channel and all the articles we're posting.
Doesn't give you access to people's
that we're going to talk about
though.
that week.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit of water's wet, but also a little bit of, especially when you think of data aggregators. I can imagine, people grabbing throwaway accounts or burner numbers and joining those just to harvest info and use it for gathering data.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, on that super uplifting, super upbeat note, how about something fun?
I think I have something fun, and I'm gonna get there eventually. But you had brought up shortwave, which I know I talked about a while ago, and I just want to plug another one of my NPR favorites, a short kind of similar type podcast, but it's called The Indicator from Planet Money. So it's an economics podcast. It's about 10 minutes long as well. And it's not all about the stock market and money. It's about economics and playing, how economic theory applies to different things. And so I think I remember, maybe a year ago, I think I had mentioned to you that, hey, Netflix is the new MySpace, fight me. We should argue about that. And the more I think about it, it's probably, I think I will amend that to Netflix is probably more like the new Firefox. It's not going away, but enough people use it. It's got enough fans that it'll stick around. It used to be the number one, it used to be big and not so much anymore. But anyways, I'm mentioning.
I think that Netflix did a very good job, a very prescient job of seeing what was going to happen as their contracts were going to run out on the content that they had, like the Disney and Showtime content, and realized years before those contracts ran out that they were going to have something to replace, and that they had gotten big enough that the media companies, the studios that actually own the rights to the various actual shows weren't going to sign with them, and certainly weren't going to sign at good terms.
Right.
And so, they realized that they were going to have to pour a ton of money, probably like literal tons of money, because I think their budget's something on the order of billions a year, right? Into original content, and you can argue with a lot of the junk that's there, because there is a lot of junk there.
Well, you're getting to the bridge that I'm making between The Indicator. So there was.
I'm sorry. I haven't actually read ahead in notes, nor have I listened to The Indicator. So okay.
So
all right. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'll be quiet.
It's a great segue. Is all that's true, and so they just did a short podcast on. It's titled "Why Netflix Turned to Junk," and what they're referring to is junk bonds. So Netflix, doing exactly what you're saying, has been selling junk bonds to try to bulk up its own content, right? For the exact reasons you talked about, is they knew that they were going to get rid of that, and so. I'm getting to my something fun eventually, but which is, despite the fact that I think Netflix is past its prime, and I don't know if it can. Anyways, the Indicator podcast kind of got to the point is they make $2 billion a year and spend $10 billion a year, or have $10 billion a year in junk bonds that are going to come due soon. So it's they need to figure out how to keep people paying the money. They need more Stranger Things or those kinds of things to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have a Netflix account. I have, on occasion, debated whether I should really keep it, because mostly what I use Netflix for anymore is I really like documentaries. And they just have tons of documentaries. And I mostly like the science and nature and astronomy, the space documentaries. And the other day, I was watching one about an Alaskan frog that somehow survives in ice. So, 0 degree weather, minus 18 Celsius weather in the winter. And I could not find I've seen so many. I could not find the little snippet of which Netflix show it was, but I did find an article on geek.com about a frog that survives the winter by freezing 2/3 of its body.
Wow.
And it becomes a little frogsicle.
Frogsicle.
And it's really cool how it does it and it actually freezes, and when it comes close to the wintertime, its body starts slowing down and freezing and thawing itself several times before it does the big freeze for 7 months. But it essentially hunkers down on the forest floor, and 60% of its body freezes solid. The heart stops beating, blood stops flowing, stops breathing. And so they went to study this frog, and it's all about, they discovered that it somehow figures out how to incorporate 10 times the normal amount of glucose in its body, which means the glucose actually acts as a cryoprotectant. I'm reading from the article now, kind of like an antifreeze for their cells, so that it can help protect it from being damaged by the changes in freezing. So, anyways, I just thought this was so cool that there is a frog that essentially freezes solid for 7 months out of the year, and then wakes back up and goes along and does its little froggy things. So, if I can find the Netflix show, I'll send that to you before you post. If I can hunt that down. But otherwise, this article, I think, explains it pretty cool too. So that was my something fun.
I do not remember frogs in Alaska.
Apparently, there are some.
Apparently, they exist. That is fantastic.
Anyways,
so okay, because
talking about science and enjoying science, that is just so cool.
Way to go from NPR to economics to Netflix to frogs. that covers a lot of things that I deem fun. Very, very.
I got
very
there
well
eventually.
Done. All right, so Frogsicle, that might have to be the title. And I thought you made that up, but no, that's actually in the article too.
I stole that from the article.
Okay, well now I'm embarrassed. My something fun is nowhere near as fun as that. That is hard to top. It can't be done. Can't be done. Okay, but what I did this week, actually, I started this a couple weeks ago, but I don't know how to start saying this, but I clearly have allergic. That's too strong. Sensitivity to some sorts of foods, and I don't know what it is. And I've tried to kind of isolate it. I've never done like a full-on elimination diet, but practically any time I eat, I get the sniffles, and I have to blow my nose, or I don't know. I'm sensitive to something. Mm-hmm. So for a good while now, I've been, I should do one of those tests. And I don't know. I had a doctor's appointment sometime last year, and they did a test for some food stuff, and I came back clean. But anyway, I went ahead and just pulled the trigger, and I bought this kit on Amazon from Everlywell, which evidently was a Shark Tank company. I only realized that when I went to their website. good for them. But it was a sort of home blood test. So, I basically had to, use a little alcohol pad on my finger and wipe it off, and then use one of those, what do they call it? Those needle plunger things. I'm sure that's not what they're called. Shoot. Yeah, the word escapes me. To, prick my finger and then, wipe off the first drop of blood so it doesn't contaminate, and then basically drip blood onto these circles on the card. And it wasn't very many. I mean, it was like five circles that if you could aim a drop of blood appropriately, which clearly I could not, it was no big deal. But you're like, I'm literally half an inch away. How did you drip over there? So anyway, it's fine. I filled all the circles. It's kind of like coloring in, those optical imaging tests, the ACT test or the SAT or voting. Yeah. In Oregon, we vote by mail, which is by filling out, use a number 2 pencil or a pen.
Right.
But yeah, so I colored outside the lines, let's say. But anyway, so I did that test, and they were really quick. I dropped it off in the mail, I don't know, last Thursday or something like that. And then Saturday they texted me and said, hey, it's at the lab. And then Sunday they texted me and said, we have your results. So
do you have a food allergy?
I do not. So that was my something fun. So
I guess that is fun. Better than having one.
Well, you
sound disappointed that you don't have a food allergy.
Well, if they had said, "Hey, you're allergic to clams," and I'm saying that because that's one of the things that came up as a mild reactivity, then I would have been like, "Cool, I will never touch a clam again."
When was the last time you touched a clam?
I don't like clams. Yeah, that would have been an okay thing, but no. So for me personally, I didn't come out as highly reactive to anything, which I guess is good. But I did come out with 2 moderate reactivities, which they give you a nice scale, and so it was cow's milk and yogurt. So milk's in a lot of stuff. So I guess maybe that's it. I don't know. Huh. But because the milk was 113, and on the scale, 116 is considered high reactivity. So it's pretty darn close. It's up there. So anyway, and yogurt. I don't eat yogurt. So I don't know. And I don't like sour cream. I don't really drink a lot of milk these days unless it's milk from our own cow, and our own cow milk doesn't seem to bother me much. So anyway, so the I'm disappointed is, all right, it didn't give me anything actionable. Oh. And so
I wanted it to tell me what to avoid, and it didn't.
Right. It would have been nice if there was something. So that was fun.
I gotcha.
But anyway, and it tests something like, so 81 plus 13 would be 94 plus 2. So I guess 96 foods, which is kind of a lot. That's cool. I'm trying to figure out exactly how they do that with only 5 drops of blood.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, I'm scrolling through the website, and there's tons of different tests that you can take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I didn't look too much, but one of the things that they said about this was that if you haven't, so they're actually testing like antibodies in your blood for things that are in these items. So if you haven't eaten these items in the last 6 months, your blood won't contain, or maybe they're not antibodies, antigens, IgG, something like that. And so, like, if you know that you're sensitive to milk, and so you never eat milk or drink milk or eat anything with milk in it, and you haven't for the last 6 months, then you could take this test and it would say, well, you don't have a reaction to milk. because it wouldn't have any of those things in your body. So sometime clearly in the last 6 months, then I must have had some clam chowder or something like that, because I don't know how that's in there, because you're right, I don't eat clams to the best of my knowledge. But you know what I do? This is probably
you
what it is.
I bet
Clamato,
it's in don't you?
Yeah, no. But I do like we go to Panda Express a lot, and I bet you that that's in some of their like sauces. It wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just rationalizing that. But so anyway, for me personally, this was kind of cool. I'm glad to have done it. Although I wish that I had a more clear answer for something that I could actually take action on. The thing that I most appreciated, the thing that I thought was absolutely the best was, let's see, hold on. This was cheddar cheese. Cheddar cheese. My reactivity to cheddar cheese was a 1. So, AKA, I don't think you could go any lower. This seems to be on a scale of 1 to something higher than 116. And 1. So I'm good for my cheddar cheese.
You do enjoy your cheese.
I do love my cheese. So, but evidently I need hard cheeses. So anyway. Okay. Anyway, right. This has gone on way too long. Way too long. What am I going to cut out? I don't know. But that was my something fun for this week.
I got to mention Clamato, so I'm good.
Disgusting. Okay, and I've never had it, but no, just no. That's my inner 8-year-old going, heck no.
All right.
Okay, all right, man. Call it a show.
Have fun editing this one.
Well, it's either going to turn out super long and I'll leave it all in, or super short because I cut it all out.
I look forward to seeing the running time.
All right, Eric. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.